What's up, guys? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall markets. I'm going to break down some new data that just came out that's very important and why the market's seeing a temporary bounce right now. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30, not to mention 8.1% APY in uninvested cash. The offer ends at the end of March. Anyways, as far as Tesla's going, we're seeing a rebound attempt so far, and I would like to see us get very close to that 300 area. And we'll see if we get some kind of rejection or not off of that. But for now, we are seeing the market trying to push, looking at SPY and the others. Keep in mind that when we do gap up, we do tend to dip a bit, but then we'll see if we try to see temporary relief. In the beginning, if there is some more relief that's coming just temporarily thanks to Nvidia, before we see more further downside. So I will talk more about the charts in a couple of minutes. But just know a couple of headlines are coming out. There are researchers who are saying it's unlikely that Tesla is going to deliver over 500,000 vehicles in a quarter in 2025. It's very, very reasonable for many of these, researchers to say that based off the trends on Tesla, based off sentiment. But I don't fully agree that this is like a guarantee or this is extremely likely because there's still so much left in the year, right? We still have Q2, Q3, Q4, not to mention we still have I think Q4 is going to be a big one for Tesla, and the Model Y refresh is still coming out. So I think it's too early to make this call. I wouldn't necessarily agree with this fully, but I do think it's reasonable to say this. I completely understand why researchers are seeing this based off our data, based off the decline in sales, and based off the fear right now for Tesla. It makes sense, right? But like I said before, there's still a lot coming for Tesla. We have the Model Y refresh and a lot of other updates that could be promising. So we'll see how those end up going. For other pieces of news, I just want to mention that we just got our GDP numbers, and the data is good and bad. So what's good is the GDP growth rate quarter over quarter was at 2.3%. This is aligned with expectations, not bad whatsoever. But when you look at the GDP price index quarter over quarter, this was a little bit hot at that 2.4% area. This is a little bit above expectations. This basically means that the goods and services produced in the US, the prices of them did go up a little bit. Not the best of news, at least on that end. Besides that, consumer spending is also still aligned with expectations. Initial jobless claims is a little bit high, so that's pretty much what we're seeing. The data is so, not too great, not too bad, aligned with expectations. We have Barr from the Fed giving a speech at 10 a.m. Then we have some bill auctions. Then we have Bowman giving a speech at 11:45, and just a bunch of Fed speakers throughout the day. That's pretty much it for now in terms of our economic data. Now, what else is affecting the market is Nvidia. Nvidia is starting to push a little bit. So my prediction of us seeing upside after Nvidia's earnings was technically correct. So far, we are pushing a little bit to the upside. Is it enough to really shake the markets? Maybe not for now. It's not going to shake us that hard. But I think that this is contributing to some temporary relief in the markets, just temporarily for a small move up. But as time goes on, I still do have bearish sentiment for the medium term as we get to April and the new Trump tariffs that are coming out. Keep in mind, NVIDIA beat on earnings and their data center segments was very, very strong. Lots and lots of good growth overall, good margins. But what's going to be important is going to be the fact that the data center revenue is just continuing to look very strong, and their Blackwell AI demand remains very, very strong as well. That's good for the short term. It did wow investors, and much of that was priced in, which is why the share price did not explode. But there are still some buyers who are coming in for the short term, and I still think that could help the markets. So temporarily, Nvidia could help the market relieve the downside we saw just a bit before we see a much larger move. Also, there's still extreme fear in the markets. The markets are still panicking. We were expecting like a big dump, and that's why I was expecting some relief as a result of this. So as far as Tesla goes, just to start things off, I think that let me just clarify something. I do think we're going to be dumping to fill our gap on the daily all the way down to the 250 area. I do think Tesla will dump there. Okay. But before that happens, before we dump to 250 to fill our gap, which is like over here, before we come down here, we might see some temporary upside, a very, very small move to the upside with NVIDIA's earnings. Could be looking for a retest of 300 today. We need to reclaim 300 for there to be some hope for us to go higher. I think we might get very close to touching it, and then we'll see if we get a rejection or not off of that. We have to watch that very closely, so look for a bit of upside. If we could reclaim 300 and also where this trend line happens to be, then yes, we could go a little higher first before we come back down, right? But it depends on what the reaction is. So look for a little bit more upside for that 300 test. Can we hold above 300 and get back above 303 than these low 300s? If we can, this could try to rally a bit, and then we'll see if we turn back down. So I'll be watching this very closely. I think we will eventually dump to fill the gap towards like the 250s or so. But before that happens, we'll have to see how high do we go first. Do we push to 300 or go a little bit higher than that? It's very possible we try to get to like 300, if not 310, if we break past 303. But then, like I said before, it's just a temporary move up. Tesla will eventually come back down. In terms of SPY, we're barely at about 596, but just keep in mind that when we gap up, we do typically see some downside. Um, we need to try to hold above 594. If we could hold that today, right, there's a chance that we might touch 594, rebound a bit. If Nvidia pumps, it's possible we get one attempt to rally. We try to rally back up like this. So we had a low here. We came up, made a higher low, and came up. As long as you don't lose 594, we might dip upon open. And then if we bounce off 594, there could be an attempt to get back up to 599, if not the low 600s, just like this. That would be very, very healthy. And then, I don't think this move is going to last forever. If we do see some kind of upside move, we still have a gap to fill down around 584. So it might just be a temporary push to the low 600s. If we get to 605, that would be a blessing. I'd be very happy if we get back up to these 605 plus or so, and then we're going to eventually come down as we approach the month of mid March to April. That period, I do see us dumping to the 580s or below eventually. But for the short term, we're not going to worry about the 580s. For now, we're watching these levels. If we lose 589, yes, I will turn more bearish. We're looking for that dump to 585. We're not there yet. Might be a small dip, but as long as we hold 594, we could see a little bounce and some temporary relief before a much bigger move to the downside. So I hope that's as clear as possible. That's what we're going to be looking for today, to hold 594 to try to rebound a bit on SPY to get back up to 599, if not the low 600s, and then we could turn back down. So that's what I'm eyeing. If we lose 594, I'm going to be looking for 590, and if that fails us, then I turn more bearish. For now, I'm looking for a small rebound. Even on the QQQ, we're trying to rebound a bit. When we gap up, typically we do come down a bit first, but then I would like to see us break 518. If we do that, I'm looking for 521 and eventually 525-ish, like in this range, for a little bit more relief right here, right? Because we had a low here, we came up, made a higher low, now we're trying to bounce. So then we're looking for some temporary relief to the mid 520s. It's a possibility if we break 518, but then it's just a temporary move, and I do see us eventually dumping to the 490s. And the next, as we get closer to mid March, if not by April. So I do see a temporary relief move coming, just temporarily, where the market's going to try to bounce. Could we go even higher? I'd like to see that. I would love that because it's a big opportunity to unload on positions and even to try to short. But for now, for the short term, look for a dip upon open and then maybe an accumulation. As long as we can make a higher low, as long as we don't end up losing 509 or so, I think that we could attempt a rebound in a small bounce and move higher into the 520s. And then we'll see if we get a rejection or not. For the Russell 2000, okay, we're trying to base right here. There's a possible inverse head and shoulders. We need to hold 213. We're barely holding on to support right now. So if we could hold this area, we could attempt some kind of recovery move like this, as long as we don't lose 213, for example. And then we could be coming back down later on. If we lose 213, this low right here, if this breaks, then yes, I will turn more bearish. I expect us to dump to 210 or below. So watch and see what kind of reaction we get once we see this big move. For ES, the same thing is going on. We want to see if we could break this trend line around the 6,000 area. That's going to be very, very important for us. We'll see if that breaks or not. If we get a rejection, look for a test of 6,000. We'll see if we break that. That's going to be very, very key for us. NQ has a test of 21,391 coming for a small push. We'll see if we reject or not as well off that resistance. Bitcoin might be retesting 88,000, so watch how it reacts. The big one, Nvidia, has this inverse head and shoulders pattern. I'm not as worried about that pattern. What matters is, can we get back up to this resistance? It might try to get up to about like under 138 ish. We need to break 140 to be bullish, or if we come short and we reject off this yellow trend line here where we rejected, rejected, and rejected, we might come up here and then reject here. So we'll see if that ends up being the case or not. And once again, for Tesla, we could try to push a little higher for like the low 300 area, and we'll see if we get a rejection. So keep that in mind. Apple is very weak right now. I would like to see us retest like 242 before it starts to dip again. Just a few more. I'm going to be kind of quick with this. I know time is running out. Coin could be trying to get up to about 220 if that breaks. I'm looking for 225. Amazon could be attempting to push higher for this trend line, which would take us close to about a little bit under 220, and we'll see how it ends up reacting to that. I do think we're going to test this trend line around 220. We'll see if we reject or not off of that. Look for a little bit more upside nonetheless. Meta should be hitting 689 to 690 if that breaks. 700 is the next target. We'll see how it reacts to that as well. On Microsoft, we're trying to hit 403.8. If that breaks, we're looking for essentially 405. And then Google is also trying to rebound right here. We have this resistance. If we break through this, we're looking for 178 plus. So we'll see what kind of reaction we get. Keep in mind, the VIX also has a gap here, but there's also the possibility of a head and shoulders on the VIX. So this could be indicative of, downside for the VIX, which is upside for the markets. At least that's what that implies. So there could be a temporary move up for the markets and even Tesla, just for the time being. And then we'll see if we get a rejection off this 300 area, if not the low 300s. So look for a little bit of a rebound, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get. Anyways, that's it for this one. Thank you for listening. Have a good one, guys, and peace out.